Hey everyone. Yes, you didn't make a mistake when you were reading the title of the video. This is a book review. I just finished reading this book and I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to talk about it and see if you guys had read it. But don't worry, this isn't going to turn into the book channel because I don't know. I just want to be able to do videos about anything that strikes my fancy at the moment. I don't want to be bogged down by just beauty related things. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, oh, well, why don't you just make a separate channel for that sort of thing? Because one channel is hard enough to keep track of. I don't want to have multiple channels. So I'm not going to do book reviews that often, but if I feel like doing one, I will. So if you're not into reading or books or whatever, you can just click out and skip on this video then. Okay, so anyways, I just finished this book. It's called The Help by Catherine Stockett. I'm sure a lot of you have read this book because it was on the bestseller lists. And I really love this book. It sucks you right in right from the very beginning. The characters are so real, and the way your imagination creates them, that you can just picture them so clearly in your mind. And it's one of those books that the further you get into it, the scareder you get, because as you get closer and closer to the end of the book, you kind of slow down on your reading because you don't want it to end. You become so engrossed in these people's lives and these characters that, you don't want it to end. So, in case you're not familiar with it, what this book is about is it takes place in a small town in Mississippi in the early 60s. I think the book starts off in 1962, and it's about this group of black women who are hired help. They're maids, they're nannies, they do it all. They cook, they clean, they do everything for these white families. And when I first had heard about this book, I wasn't really sure if I would like it because I was like, oh, I don't know, historical fiction, civil rights, race relations in the Deep South in the early 60s. That doesn't sound like it's going to be a very fun or interesting book to read. Well, boy, was I wrong. What I did was I took this book out from the library because, I like to take out books from the library anyway, but I definitely did not want to buy this book because I wasn't really sure if I was going to like it or not. But even if I did, when it comes to fiction, I don't usually read a book more than once. Once I've read it, I'm done with it, I move on. It's a very rare thing for me to reread a fiction book a second or a third time. So anyways, it's a book about this group of women, and boy, I'll tell you, you get so engrossed in their lives and everything. And I don't know if this is required reading in schools, but I feel like it should be because it puts across a lot of really important messages about race and class structure and just, the basic way that you treat people in your day-to-day life. And the morals of the story, I think, are so important. And I think that if the right person read this book with the wrong mindset, it could make them, stop and think about their own values about things in life. And it doesn't even have to be, it is about race, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be about the way you treat people, just about basic kindness. People are so critical with each other and always looking to tear people down. And it doesn't serve a purpose. It's not going to make you feel any better about yourself, and it's not going to help anybody in any way, shape, or form. So why do it? I I don't know. I have. If you've read this book, by all means, put something in the comment section and let me know, what did you think about it. Something interesting that I read about this after the fact. After I finished reading the book, I went online and I started reading different things, and come to find out, the author, someone tried to sue the author, saying that she was one of the characters, one of the main characters in the book. And come to find out, she lost her case because the statute of limitations had run out, and you're only allowed to, if you're going to sue somebody because of something, it has to be within a certain time frame. So she lost her case, her suit, and I don't know if she appealed or not, or if she just dropped it. But she didn't like the way her character was portrayed in the book, and it wasn't supposed to be about real people anyway. It was supposed to be fictional. And the author had stated that in interviews and so forth. And the woman who claimed that, she was one of the people in this book, supposedly or legibly said that she was a hired person by the author's family when the author was a child, right down to, she even just, explained how there were, the way the author described the woman to look, the personality, everything was supposedly, spot on. And she didn't even change the woman's first name. But so I guess, it sounds to me like there was a lot of truth to this, and that she probably was that woman. But I was really disappointed with that, because I thought, geez, it's a #1 best-selling novel for the year that it was published, and it was supposed to be fiction. And if it was going to be a nonfiction book, maybe she just didn't want to have to approach all the people that she was basing it on and say, is it okay if I write this book, and blah, 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 and acknowledge that it was true. I guess, I don't know. But, so yeah, this, I don't know if this is some kind of required reading maybe in schools or not, because I don't have any children, or I don't know anybody whose kids are in high school right now or anything. So I would hope it would be, because, like I said, I think it tells a lot of important messages about race relations, class structure, civil rights, all that kind of stuff. Because the women in this book, most of them were working under the table, and the ones that weren't, these women were working under the table, and they were working for less than whatever minimum wage was at that time. And they didn't dare ask for raises or anything like that, because they needed their jobs and they couldn't afford to question anything. One of the characters in the book, she was raising this child in this family, and when the children would get to be a certain age, she would quit and she would move on. Because what would happen is the children would start to become like their parents, and they would start to take on the prejudices of their parents. And so she liked the children when they were still pure, and they just saw her as a person that they loved, that loved them. But once they started to see her as a black woman who was their nanny and hired help, everything started to change. And so she would move on to another family and start over again with children that were just born. And it was a very sad book, but like I said, it tells like a really important story, and it's definitely worth reading. So if you were kind of on the fence about whether or not to read this book or not, just try it. I guarantee you will be sucked into it right from the get-go. And, you know, you come away with this thinking and realizing how hard these women had it as far as their lives goes. And a lot of times they were in abusive relationships with the men that they were married to, if they even had a husband. And if they didn't, you know, can you imagine taking care of somebody else's children for less money than what you're worth, busting your all day long, cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and then going home and having to clean and cook and take care of your own children. And I know that there are people still who do this, but I'm sure they're being paid what they're worth and compensated for it. But can you imagine doing it for, you know, very little money and just barely making ends meet? And, you know, there's problems in your home life, and it's just, it was an amazing book, and it really makes you realize how tough these women had it back then, and because, you know, things were just starting to change. And look how far we've come. You know, we started off with black people in this country as being slaves. Then, when they were given their freedom and slavery was abolished, then they pretty much had to take any job that they could find and weren't being paid what they were worth. And then, of course, as time went on, the barriers all came down, and now we have a black man as president. So how awesome is that? In terms of, you know, progress and things changing and people starting to realize that the color of your skin means absolutely nothing in terms of your self-worth. I mean, we still have barriers to break down as far as sexism goes. You know, how long is it going to be before we have a woman as president? That could take a while. Because I think a lot of people are just not ready for that idea just yet, because let's face it, women are emotional, and how do you juggle that in terms of being the most powerful political figure in the country? You know, how do you not let your emotions get into that? That would be tough. That would be very hard, I think, because I think men are so much better at managing their emotions, and when their emotions do get out of control, it's not in the same way that it does with women. I'm not saying that a woman couldn't do that job. I'm sure that there's plenty of women who could, but I think it would be difficult, especially if, you know, your hormone levels weren't balanced for whatever reason, because it was a certain time of the month, or maybe because you were at a certain stage in your life, because as women go into menopause, their hormones start to fluctuate too. So anyway, I think this has gone on long enough, but yeah, let me know, did you read this book? What did you think of it? I hope that nothing I said was controversial. I don't think it was, but you know, you never know. When you start talking about these subjects, you can really ruffle people's feathers. And everybody has different opinions. I respect your opinion about this subject matter, but if you disagree with anything that I said and you want to leave a comment, please make sure that it is respectful of maybe that my opinion is not the same as yours. But, you know, just be careful the way you word things, because any kind of hate comment is not going to be posted, because I always put my comments on approval. And so I appreciate that your opinion may be different than mine, but please do it respectfully.